when a nation conceals its own evil. I could not help but think of the state of our nation, America, when reading about the Civil War in Judges chapter 20. Judges 20 details a devastating civil war within Israel, triggered by the horrific abuse and death of a Levite's concubine in the territory of Benjamin. The United Tribes of Israel gather at Mitzvah and demand that the tribe of Benjamin hand over the guilty men from Gibeah. When Benjamin refuses, war breaks out. The violence and lawlessness resulted in the slaying of 40,000 Israelites and 23,000 of the tribe of Benjamin. Nearly the entire tribe was wiped out. In our nation, we have unchecked lawlessness, cover-up for evil acts, spiritual leader scandals, exposure of men's evil deeds, think Epstein files, money laundering, human trafficking, and tax fraud, that is failing to meet justice, and sin running rampant in our society. This Tuesday, President Trump will give his State of the Union address. However, will he give a true assessment of the state of our nation? Or will he gloss over the evil that has been left unchecked and unaccounted for, and instead paint a picture of the coming golden age of America? I tend to think it will be the latter. I wanted to dive deeper into a few verses in Judges 20 as it really speaks to the state of our nation now. In Judges 20 verse 13 it says, "Now then, deliver up the men, the worthless fellows in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and remove this wickedness from Israel." But the sons of Benjamin would not listen to the voice of their brothers, the sons of Israel. This is a sad but, as giving over the guilty parties would spare many other lives, as we see from the number of body bags in the following account. The sons of Benjamin were harboring the sons of Belial and were guilty by association, in a sense accomplices to one of the most violent crimes in Israel's history. Like many today, the Benjaminites were unable to accept reproof and had a false sense of loyalty in protecting men who were guilty of a heinous crime. The only solution would be that they would have to learn the hard way. Proverbs 29 verse 1. Today in our own nation, because of a false sense of loyalty, evil is being concealed by our leaders. When sin isn't exposed, confessed, and punished, it pollutes society and defiles the land. Warren Wiersbe. Warren Wiersbe comments on this verse. Some people may have interpreted the stubbornness of Benjamin as an act of patriotism. They were only trying to protect their own citizens. But the refusal to cooperate was definitely an act of rebellion against the Lord. By coming to the aid of Gibeah, rather than joining in the punishment of that city, the tribe identified with the wicked men and merited their punishment. When sin isn't exposed, confessed, and punished, it pollutes society and defiles the land. The wicked men of Gibeah were like a cancerous tumor in the body that had to be cut out. Block has an interesting thought on why the Benjaminites refused to hand over the guilty men. The extent to which people will stand up to defend evil and evildoers is a measure of how deeply rooted is the Canaanizing rot in a culture. The sons of Benjamin had either forgotten or chosen to ignore God's repeated warning about purging evil from their midst. This principle was given by God so that evil would not spread like leaven, that power would be dissipated, or as in the present case, an entire tribe might not disappear. The following 9 passages are no accident, and they are all in the book of Deuteronomy, Israel's instruction manual, so to speak, on how to live and prosper in the promised land. Deuteronomy 13 verse 5. "But that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has counseled rebellion against the Lord your God, who brought you from the land of Egypt and redeemed you from the house of slavery, to seduce you from the way in which the Lord your God commanded you to walk. So you shall purge the evil from among you." Deuteronomy 17:7. "The hand of the witnesses shall be first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people. so you shall purge the evil from your midst. Deuteronomy 17, verse 12. The man who acts presumptuously by not listening to the priest who stands there to serve the Lord your God, nor to the judge, that man shall die. Thus you shall purge the evil from Israel. Deuteronomy 19:19 says, Then you shall do to him just as he had intended to do to his brother. Thus you shall purge the evil from among you. Deuteronomy 22, verse 21. Then they shall bring out the girl to the doorway of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her to death because she has committed an act of folly in Israel by playing the harlot in her father's house. Thus you shall purge the evil from among you. Deuteronomy 22, verse 22. If a man is found lying with a married woman, then both of them shall die, the man who lay with the woman and the woman. Thus you shall purge the evil from Israel. Deuteronomy 22, verse 24. Then you shall bring them both out to the gate of that city, and you shall stone them to death, the girl because she did not cry out in the city, and the man because he has violated his neighbor's wife. Thus you shall purge the evil from among you. And lastly, Deuteronomy 24, verse 7. If a man is caught kidnapping any of his countrymen of the sons of Israel, and he deals with him violently or sells him, then that thief shall die. So you shall purge the evil from among you. God is serious about purging evil from his people, and this surely applies to his church and our nation. Not being willing to purge the evil from the tribe of Benjamin cost them dearly. C.H. Spurgeon says, Sin is the mother and nurse of all evil, the egg of all mischief, the fountain of all bitterness, the root of misery. The Civil War. Judges 20, verse 14 says, And the sons of Benjamin gathered from the cities to Gibeah to go out to battle against the sons of Israel. Not only did the tribe of Benjamin refuse to give up the guilty men, but they in effect declare war on the other 11 tribes. So even though this event was likely early in the 300-plus year period of Judges, it demonstrates that their logic and sense of right and wrong was already dysfunctional. What had begun as a punitive operation against one city now turned into a full-scale civil war. Later, the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh were to engage in bitter fighting, but here it was not a regional but a national conflict of 11 tribes against one. The men of Benjamin had a good reputation as excellent soldiers, as had been predicted by Jacob in Genesis 49. Their ability with the bow and the slingshot were well known, and even in the time of Saul, some Benjaminites could use the sling with either hand. Perhaps pride muddled their thinking, and they thought that their superior skill could offset the great numerical disadvantage. Pride and self-confidence would prove costly, and sadly, for both sides. The foolish, sinful action of the tribe of Benjamin reminds me of the right in your own eyes mindset that has in effect stolen righteousness from this nation, as deceived men and women now call evil good and good evil. We are cruising for a bruising in this country. Paul spoke of this general acceptance of evil as the final stage in rejecting the knowledge of God in Romans 1 writing. And although they know the ordinance of God that those who practice such things are worthy of death, they not only do the same, but also give hearty approval to those who practice them. A society that refuses to accept guilt in the sense of distinguishing right from wrong and punishing the offender will soon prove impossible to govern. David Jackman. David Jackman has some superb observations and powerful applications to these verses. There is not the slightest doubt as to the action the leaders of the tribe of Benjamin should have taken when they were confronted with the moral responsibility of the crime they had allowed the citizens of Gibeah to perpetrate. Either they should have punished the offenders themselves or handed them over to the nation's representatives, as demanded in verse 13. But they refused to do this. Although the guilt of the men of Gibeah was proved beyond question, instead they chose to regard the accusation as a personal attack on the tribe and began to mobilize an army of 26,000 men to defend the guilty. By way of application, we need to remember that there is no clearer indication of moral sickness than when wrongdoing is condoned or even defended on the grounds of family or national solidarity and loyalty. In our society, sins are laundered verbally to make them acceptable, or at least tolerated, to an increasingly undisciplined populace. Adultery is redefined as wife swapping or having an affair. Homosexuality becomes a gay lifestyle. Theft at work is acceptable if it is the perks of the job. Lies are always white, the truth always selective. Greed is sanitized as upward social mobility. The examples are endless. The purpose is always the same: to remove my sense of moral guilt, and so to pretend that if something sounds okay, people feel comfortable with it, and that's all that matters. Whether it's in the TV ads or in the newspapers, the circumstances are glamorized, and visual images of social acceptability, fun, wealth, and vitality are all used to anesthetize the conscience, to pretend that anything goes. This was the situation in Israel. But the lesson, then and now, is that a society that refuses to accept guilt, in the sense of distinguishing right and wrong and punishing the offender, will soon prove impossible to govern. Everyone will do what is right in his or her own eyes, and there will be no ultimate restraints. Might becomes right, and civilization ceases. The tragedy of Israel was that these symptoms were not dealt with when they first appeared because there was no king. Those of us who are entrusted with authority within the biblical structures of home, church, or nation have a heavy responsibility before God to use it responsibly in love to Him and to our neighbor." End quote. In conclusion, our leaders are failing to deal with the evil in our land like the Benjaminites. The state of our union can be evaluated from Romans chapter 1. We are approaching the 250th anniversary of our nation, and it is only because of God's divine long-suffering that we still exist. For the time has come for judgment to begin at the house of God. And if it begins with us first, what will be the end of those who do not obey the gospel of God? 1 Peter 4:17. Or do you despise the riches of his goodness, forbearance, and long-suffering, not knowing that the goodness of God leads you to repentance?